Truly great people are capable of seeing themselves in the most negative light. Because at the same time, they also recognize their true greatness. Their true greatness is not that they did something. It's because they are something. They are whole, complete, and worthy. Not because of a great accomplishments, but because that God created them in such a fashion, with a divine soul, with great capability. And because of that, there's a capability of seeing yourself at the same time in a very harsh manner, in a very lowly sense of self, only in order to help you grow even greater, to greater heights. You put a seed into the ground, it rots, and because it rots, something beautiful can grow. The Beinoni wants to grow above and beyond. Welcome to Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad in Kadesh in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. We continue on a difficult journey of the Beinoni. Difficult because the Beinoni is experiencing a dullness of heart and owns their life to such a degree that they want to deal with it. They don't want to have a dullness of heart. They want to be able to have a heart that's full of light, passion, love towards their Maker, and feel the sense of connectivity when they daven, when they pray. And if that sense of connectivity is lost, they don't feel, well, ho-hum, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Today's not a good day. What do you mean today's not just a good day? It's not a good day, make it good. That's how the Beinoni feels. And therefore it goes to a very great extreme in ownership. And we're only touching the tip of the iceberg. As we get down below the surface, we'll see there's much more that we are going to, that the Alter Rebbe is going to express.
So we're talking about the personality now, basically.
Right now we're talking about, the personality. So, as we spoke yesterday, the righteous, as example, Hillel the elder, who passed away in the year 8 of the Common Era, lived in the times of the Second Holy Temple before it was destroyed, 60 years later, 60-odd years later. And he was a righteous person who transformed the animal soul. He transformed it, that it was also a healthy partner in the divine order of things. And therefore, when he went to eat, he saw that he's doing a great kindness to his body, which he felt lowly because he felt it separate. It's not his true, authentic self. But we're not that way. We don't feel that way. We may express it. We're talking about not just expressing something, but living that. We're not righteous. We are Halavai Beinoni, so be it that we be a Beinoni. We are BIT's Beinoni in training. And as a result, because the animal soul is my first responder in life, since my animal soul is what I am more naturally attuned to, naturally, and therefore the struggle is always, to not be attuned to it, right? But we struggle with that, and therefore, because of it, we are removed from God in a because we have the capability of lusting, having a strong drive from the animal soul for even things that are forbidden, that are contrary to the will of God, literally. While the Beinoni will not succumb to that lust, won't succumb to the lust, but the lust is there, right? Because it's not repulsive. The lust of the Beinoni, like by the righteous would be repulsed by the notion of eating for pleasure or sexual pleasure, even. Be repulsed by that. It's not their world. The Beinoni is not repulsed by it, doesn't act upon it, doesn't even allow the thought to be entertained. But the very fact is that the desire is there. So remember, this is all a method in order to, it's a means to get beyond the dullness of heart that the Beinoni is experiencing and wants to bring down the negativity that's in his heart to be able to allow the passion and the love that's in the divine soul, that's deeper in the heart, to be expressed. So the Beinoni, they think to themselves, I'm more inferior and loathsome than even unclean animals, insects, reptiles. Why? Because they don't transgress the will of God. They're doing exactly what God wants them to do. Right? And as King David says in Tehillim, chapter 22, but I am a worm and not a man. In other words, I'm worse than a worm. Because the worm is the creation that has no choice and does exactly what God wants, and therefore fulfilling the divine order of things. Right? But me, says the Beinoni to himself in his thought process, I have these desires, these lusts. Now, it's true he doesn't give in to it. But the mere fact that the Beinoni has it, and again, remember that this Beinoni we're talking about is someone who's fulfilled 28 chapters of Tanya before this, and therefore they know who they are. They know exactly, what life is all about, the purpose of life, and that they have a godly soul that is dear to God and is their whole complete and worthy, not because they did something, but they are something, but yet in their functioning of every day, expressing the passion and the love for the divine, it's a bit dull. They don't feel it. And therefore they want to take ownership. And they're taking ownership by thinking to themselves of crushing this negativity within me. And therefore saying that they're worse than the worm. Now, if you look back and a third party would see objectively, is the Beinoni worse than the worm? Obviously not. Obviously. No human being is worse than a worm. Right? Right? Except we could act worse than a worm. And potentially we could act. What we could potentially do could be worse than the worm. Right? Could be. They're doing exactly what God wants. And we might not. And potentially we have the potential not to. In that sense, this is only a means for, again, the Beinoni to crush the negativity within them by thinking this idea. You might say, but, during prayers, the Beinoni often will have a passion and a connection. Yeah, but that passes. It's transient. And therefore, the Beinoni is, even though could take great credit for that, but not taking credit for it. Why? Because there's a goal over here. I want to crush the negativity within me. So I'm not looking to see how great I am and how wonderful I am and all these wonderful things I've done. That's a person who's insecure with who they are. They need to always, get a pat on the shoulder. You're wonderful. You just said a nasty thing to somebody, right? I had that here in synagogue the other day. Someone said something nasty to another person. And I said to the person, that's not nice. That was not right. You need to apologize. The person is very insecure and wasn't ready to apologize because I'm not talking about you. Don't think out loud. Don't even think what you're thinking, because that itself is not. And the person's very insecure, so couldn't apologize, even though they know they did something wrong, and afterwards admitted. We're talking about Beinoni who's not insecure. Beinoni can't be insecure. They're fully aware of who they are and the preciousness in who they are. The more you recognize the preciousness of who you are, the more you realize that how precious you are, how cherished you sense that in you, and how cherished that is to God. And therefore, the more that's going to spur you on to become even greater. When you think of yourself as a nothing, so then what's the point in anything? And then it just brings you into a spiraling, sadness, depression, and, what's it worth anyways? But no, Beinoni here. He's the strong of the strong. Not a problem. Got it, guys? See how far away we are from what a Beinoni is? We've got our insecurities, we have the triggers in our lives. He doesn't. There aren't things that trigger the Beinoni. Doesn't have insecurities. Fully aware and engaged. And now wants to engage on a different level. So what does that mean for us? What do we do here? What do we take from today? Mm-hmm. You're going to think about yourself, I am but a worm and not a man, as King David said. Perhaps what we should take away from today is, let's be secure in who we are. A Jew is a Jew. Human being is created in the image of God. And know that you are whole, complete, and worthy, not because you did something, because you are something. And now, take greater responsibility in the sense that I'm going to crush that negative side in me that just wants to pat myself on the shoulder and feeling that I'm A-okay, or I'm special, or I'm extra special. Be aware of that, and don't let that happen, because that's all that's doing is feeding your Yetzer Hara, your evil inclination, your ego, and it's a false sense of goodness. It's not great at all. That's a good place for us to start. Okay, let's take some questions over here. Folks, our learning is remarkable every day in, day out. What we're doing, because of the way we learn, is that these teachings become like a part of us and become real. Amazing. At the same time, folks, these teachings affect the world. And one of the effects that we want to bring, first and foremost, upon us, and when we change, that we can have an effect upon, an impact upon the world around us. But you know what? Torah teachings in themselves, when we learn, has an impact. And we need to make that impact for the idea of soldiers, that they be safe and secure, and this hostages, that they should be safe and secure and brought back. And they can't do a mitzvah, but we can, and we're doing a mitzvah right now. So let us adopt a hostage and do a mitzvah. Go to adoptahostage.net.
That's nice stuff, right?
How do you deal with people who feel entitled around you and bring negative thoughts of entitlement? Don't let their, that's a choice we need to make, is that their negativity, we don't allow it to be part of our world. When we understand that that's what it is, we don't necessarily need to change them because they're not ready to be changed or to be helped. They have to change themselves, but even to be helped, sometimes they're not going to be able to see that. You bring them to Tanya, so then maybe they'll, open up their eyes to the truth. But we have to live our lives and not allow them to control because of the way they are acting. John, is there a Beinoni even capable of the Islamic also through sustained prayer? So we spoke about that in chapter 13, that there can be a Beinoni. There's a high-level Beinoni. It's sort of like living on prayers a whole day. Not that they're praying a whole day, but it's as if they're praying a whole day, and they have, a passion and strong love that endures throughout the day. But it's not a tzaddik yet. So, yeah, there could be that kind of level. The Alter Rebbe said there's like 150 levels of a Beinoni. And the highest level could be very close to the tzaddik. Because there has to be some kind of passageway from the Beinoni to the tzaddik. Because not that a Beinoni necessarily will become a tzaddik. But the tzaddik has to be able to be a Beinoni before it becomes a tzaddik. So, yeah, good question, John. Brett, are there detrimental consequences of an internal dialogue of self-loathing? I'm lower than a worm. Absolutely, Brett. Thank you for bringing that up. Absolutely, there is, if it's going to bring to self-loathing, if it's loathing, thank you, Brett. You know what, I realize I have to be more precise in what I'm saying. Self-loathing means you're loathing self. That's terrible. Never do that. You can't do that because you have a divine. How can you be self-loathing? But you could loathe your animal instinct. That you could loathe. Now, only the righteous truly loathe it. But loathing that is not self-loathing because that's not their real self. Something we're going to go further into is once we get beyond this, so we're looking beyond this, internal dialogue into, to dig deeper in ourselves. So we will come to that, how to identify yourself as something greater than self. But yeah, the Beinoni is not self-loathing. He's loathing that negative nature and the potential for the negative nature even. So I am but a worm means that I have the capability of being worse than the worm because I can, do wrong. The worm can't do wrong. Right? But that's not self-loathing. That's loathing that part of me. At the same time, as we will come to it, the great celebration there is in your greater, truer nature. But remember, and this is important, this is after 28 chapters of learning Tanya, and not just learning it, but living it. And when you've lived those chapters, then you will have the capacity to come and to look negatively and talk negatively to your negative side in order to bring it down. To bring it down. It's full of air. It's like, like an arrogant person. What's an arrogant person? They're full of air. Full of, what they say, hot air, right? Really just full of themselves. All you have to do is get rid of the air, and then that negativity collapses. And that's what we want over here. The negativity should collapse in order to allow the divine soul to truly emerge with its love and passion for the divine. Thank you, Brett. I hope that brought greater clarity. Thank you, Celeste, and Chava, who is doing today's learning for Hersh Goldberg, Poland, and Aviv Atzili, who after 137 days are still hostages, yeah. And also Diane dedicating for Yoram Metzger, Michal Nissenbaum, thank you. John, does the divine soul become stronger with practice? Absolutely. Because the more you reveal it, yeah, absolutely. Alice Sivsha, isn't becoming a Beinoni an intellectual experience that most people aren't always up to achieving? I'm not certain why you call it an intellectual experience. Being a Beinoni means you have self-mastery. You may have a desire for negativity and even something that's forbidden, but you will never act on it. You'll never speak up that way, right? So you won't speak ill about someone you shouldn't speak ill of. I'm not talking about Hamas. Hamas we should speak ill of. Absolutely. Because it's evil that needs to be destroyed. Right? But, I won't speak ill of someone who you shouldn't, a loved one, or even think it, willfully. So are we achieving it? We're BITs, remember, Beinoni in training. We're not Beinonis. We've got work to do. That's who we're here. All right, amazing. All right, folks. As always, what an amazing group and amazing people that we have here. Laura is asking a good question. I worry about my daughter. Is that negative? For the most part, it probably is. If it's constructive, in other words, you're concerned about your daughter, and because of that concern, it led you to do something, whether to talk to her about that concern or to say a chapter of Tehillim because of that concern. That's good. Not always can we speak to the person that we have a concern with, but that doesn't mean we can't do something. We could say a chapter of prayers, of Psalms. We could maybe speak to that person. That's a possibility. Sometimes not. And sometimes it's not a possibility. Sometimes the concern is maybe I need to work something through, or figure out, or whatever. But if the worry in and of itself is not coming from a good place, that's coming from the animal soul. The worry, or I'd rather call it concern, that leads us to action, to doing something that is positive, then that's good. Yitzchak, the more righteousness we practice, the more our prayers are heard. Yes, absolutely. No question about that. Yeah, no question. All right. Wow, beautiful stuff. Beautiful, beautiful. Folks, tonight's JLI, 4th class. Powerful stuff, advice for life. The Rebbe is living advice. That is, wow, amazing. If someone wants to join as a gift for tonight, private message me. You have to private message me if you want to be tonight 7:30. Private, you want to have a gift, tonight's class, private message me, and I'll send you a link. But you need to private message me first. All right? God bless you. Have an amazing day. Rambam coming up.